Okay, so linear inequalities. Linear meaning it's going to make a line. An inequality, instead of an equal sign, there's going to be an inequality sign. So, there are 4 kinds of inequalities. There's greater than, there's less than, there's greater than or equal to, and there's less than or equal to. There are 4 kinds of inequalities. So we have to think back to pre-algebra. I know you learned this in pre-algebra because I just taught it to my pre-algebra students this year. And I had some of you for pre-algebra last year, and I remember teaching it to you last year.
For you.
A greater than or a less than sign is an open dot. So for example, if you had x is greater than 8, if 8 was in the middle, right, we go 1 up to 9, 1 down to 7.
Oh, okay.
X is greater than 8. I draw a fence around the 8 because you can't be equal to it, so keep it away from the 8. And do you remember this? Which way does it shade?
To the 12.
To the right. X is greater than 8. Where do numbers that are greater than 8 live?
Oh, greater than 8.
To the right. Okay, the next one. If you have a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to, it's a closed dot. Because the answer, the shading is where your answer goes. And so you're shading inside the dot because the answer could be on that exact number. That equal to says it could be the number. And I have y is less than or equal to -3. So if I draw my number line, y is less than or equal to -3. I have -3, I have -2, I have -4.
Yay.
It's a closed dot. And since y is smaller than or less than -3, that's down. It's below. It's to the left. So, unfortunately, it's a little bit different because we don't have just one line. We're graphing and we have a coordinate plane. So to graph a linear inequality, you have to follow these steps. In order to graph anything, what formula do you use? Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So you have to make sure solve the inequality for y. Maybe it's already in slope-intercept form. And then you don't have to do number 1. Maybe it's not, and you'll have to solve for y. This is where if you multiply or divide by a negative number, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, flip the inequality. That means if the coefficient of y is negative, if the coefficient of your value y is negative, if the coefficient of y is a negative value, you're going to have to end up flipping the inequality over. Instead of being a less than sign, you flip it over to be a greater than sign. Instead of opening to the left, it's going to open to the right. And you're going to graph using the y-intercept, b, right? And slope, which is m. You're going to graph using the y-intercept b, so put a dot at b, and then you're going to count the slope, up and over, rise over run, correct? It's that easy. But here's the new part. If it's greater than or less than, it's a dashed line. Don't make it solid, you make it dashed or dotted or tick marks or however you want to think about it. It's a broken line. If it's a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, it's a solid line. If it's a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, it's a solid line. That's kind of like our rule for open and closed dot. If it's solid, if it's closed, it has an equal to. If it's dashed or open, right, there are holes in it, there's no equal to. And third part is brand spanking new. If y is greater, which way does the y-axis go in a graph?
Upwards.
Up and down, right? It's a vertical. So if y is greater, which way are you going to shade? Shade up. If y is less than or equal to, which way does y get smaller? Shade down. All right, let's start our graphing. First problem.
7th grade is a breeze.
Y is less than 3x plus 4. Y is less than 3x plus 4. So we're going to graph it. To begin, we start at plus 4. So I go up on the y-axis to 4 and put my y-intercept. Then I count my slope. And my slope is 3 over 1. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Dylan, focus. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. I want as many dots as I can. So instead of going up and to the right, I'm going to go down and to the left. Now you have a couple choices. This would be considered a dotted line, right? It has a y is less than. And less than, up here, says that it's a dashed line. That's dashed. It's not complete. If you want to, because you like the way that it looks, you can add little dashes in.
Oh. My name messed up. Made it solid.
But do not connect the dots because it's not an equal to. It does need to go all the way through your graph. Do not do that whole little thing that you just stop there. It needs to go all the way through. Now the next part is the shading part. And it says y is less than. And I know it's y is less than because, right, the pointy part is pointing to the smaller one. It eats the bigger side. So y is smaller. So I look at my y-axis. Here's my intercept. Am I going to shade above? Or am I going to shade below? I'm going to shade below. And here's the tricky part, you guys. You're shading below, correct? Because y is smaller. And where does y get smaller? Down here. Going down. But this is my problem. This is what happens. This is where it gets confusing. You're shading right here also. This is not above the line. This is on the bottom side of the line. You shade that entire, quote-unquote, half of the line because y gets smaller down here, so you shade on this side of the line. Because if I shaded on this side of the line, y is bigger. I want to shade on this side of the line because this is where y gets smaller on the axis. Let's try another one. Y is greater than or equal to negative 8x, negative 8/5 x minus 4. So I'm going to start at negative 4. And I'm going to count my slope, which is down 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I ran out of room. So instead of going down 8 and to the right 5, I'm going to go up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And to the left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because remember, negative 8 over 5 is the same thing as 8 over negative 5. Am I going to connect these dots? Yes. These get connected because there's an equal sign. I find my intercept, which is right here. And is y greater than or less than? Y is greater than. So I'm right here. Y is bigger, so I'm shading up. And since I shade up, that means everything on this side of my line. And what does this mean? Why are we shading this? Because any ordered pair that's in the shaded region will make this work. There are infinite solutions to this. That's why we're shading it. Your answer could be 0, 0 because it's in the shaded area. Your answer could be 1/2, 1/2 because it's in the shaded area. Your answer could even be on this line because it's in the shaded area. Any ordered pair, if you substituted it in for x and for y, it would work as long as it's in the shaded area. If you pick something that's not in the shaded area, it's not a true statement. All right, one more. Try this one. A little bit.
No! I'm sleeping in the school. It's not a nice word.
Ladies and gentlemen, focus, please. 3x minus 2y is greater than or equal to 6. Step number 1. In order to graph, I have to have it written in y equals mx plus b. It has to be in slope-intercept form, so let's change it. Minus 3x minus 3x. I'm going to have to squeeze it. I didn't leave myself enough room. Negative 2y is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 6. Am I done? One more step. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. I'm going to write my answer up above. Y, what do? You have to flip it. Instead of opening to the left, it's going to open to the right because I divided by negative 2. I divided by a negative number. You have to flip if you divide by a negative number. Negative 3 divided by negative 2 is positive, correct? 3 over 2. X. What's 6 divided by negative 2? Now can you graph it?
Yep.
I start at negative 3. And from that point, I go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. Down 3, backward 2, down 3, backward 2. Do I leave it dotted or do I connect it? Why do I connect? Because there's a line with it. There's a line telling me to connect it. That line means make it a line. Is y greater than or is y less than? Y is less than. So you go to your intercept and I go down and it's everything on this side.